Flower Power. That's what I'm doing right now, right in it. I just want to say, like, don't you want somebody to love? I don't even know if they played. Woodstock. Probably, what would this be considered the most important concert in rock and roll history?
I feel like yes.
I think it has to be.
I think it probably
is like the yes. I'd say yes. It's a gathering of probably the most iconic rock bands in the history of rock and roll music.
That's got to be true.
Now, was the concert smooth and great?
Absolutely.
No. It was like
it ran great. It was perfect.
We would relate this akin to like World War I trench warfare, the concert.
Yeah.
But some of the most famous artists in the world, the biggest artists of history
ever,
and we just thought it'd be interesting to talk about what they were paid, and to break it down to like what is sort of in current valuation, and it's sort of fun to think about and contrast it to today's concerts and what artists are paid. It's sort of shocking. And we're going to start at like the highest and we're going to work our way down because I think it's sort of more shocking as we get to the bottom. You're like, whoa, they got paid what?
Right.
Like I wouldn't even pay a gig for that today or something. I mean, with inflation and everything, they're still getting paid a few bucks. But anyway, Woodstock, 1969, Woodstock, New York. It's upstate, a few hours outside the city. Beautiful little farm town. Was not ready for this massive concert.
I would say no.
And neither were the producers and the arrangers of this. They lost about, $1.3 million in debt after the concert closed. Now, into today's standards, if you lost 1.3 in 1969, that's about being $9 million. Can you imagine?
No.
Like
I cannot actually.
I mean, even like being like $1 million. So you're $1 million in debt now. It's like $300,000 in debt sounds
a lot.
Yeah, impossible to get out of. Anyway. But they did get out of it because of the film rights and the movie ticket sales and the recording sales afterwards. They ended up making a bit of a profit.
Which was sort of like a happy accident, right? Like it's not like that was their vision. They were probably thinking, oh,
we're done.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah, like we're going to have this cool concert. It's going to be great. We're going to pay all these artists this, and we're going to pay artist Y, X, and artist Z this.
Love and peace, happiness.
And so what it sort of turned out to happen, love, peace, happiness, like bad things happening in the concert. But anyway, we're just going to focus on the goods because it was an amazing concert. And so a lot of these artists were paid according to like how good their managers negotiated.
Yes.
Too. This was back in the days of the glory days of the manager in the suit knows how to negotiate. But number one at the whole show was the closer of the show, Jimi Hendrix. So have you seen Jimi Hendrix's Woodstock performance?
No. Who's Jimi Hendrix? Yes, I have.
If you're a guitar player, you've watched. You should have seen
at least snippets.
This is where he does the Star Spangled Banner, and it's one of those phenomenal performances. And we were all like, "Oh, that's in awe of that." And he has a great performance. It's the last part of the show. It was part of his contract that he had to be the closer, and the whole show ran so late. It was rain and everything, so he ended up playing on Sunday afternoon / morning to like
it's an empty.
I know.
I play a lot of great brunches on Sunday afternoons.
I'm going to have tea and crumpet and some Jimi Hendrix.
Farmers markets, it's great. I love it.
He was paid a whopping $18,000 to play this show. That equates to $125,000.
Not bad.
It's not bad. It's not huge.
It's not amazing, but it's not bad.
It's not huge. I mean, like I think most of these bands in the festivals, like the biggest band in the world, would get more than $125,000.
Yes.
So this was a really low number still compared to like today's standards of what we're used to. Let's take someone like Ed Sheeran, the biggest pop star male solo performer. When he does a concert in front of 30,000 people, like their ticket gross sales are close to like $3 million perhaps. He's probably netting him under $1 million after like costs and structures out. But still, he's making well over $500,000.
I mean, I've played country festivals for opening acts, where I was playing guitar, where the headliners were not maybe at the height of their careers, and they were still making more than that, more than Jimmy.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Jimmy, and then a year later he's gone. That's
right.
So after Jimmy, we're gonna get into this is sort of funny, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. They were the second highest paid band of Woodstock.
Of course they were.
Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Like you would think some of the other iconic artists, but they were really popular then. They're a great band. They're fun. It's a big band. Awesome. They were paid $15,000. $15,000 smacks is $105,000 by today's standards in the year 2021. That's really good. And let's move on. Credence Clearwater Revival and Joan Baez. They each got $10,000. So that's That's a lot of money. $70,000 a pop. Joan Baez is just by herself.
Hey,
with an acoustic guitar.
that's all right.
I would show up, and we were talking with Derek earlier. Poco was offered it to play this, and they turned it down to go play a high school.
What a good decision.
Because they were paid more. And it's because they weren't just. That was a big band.
Everybody knows you take the exposure gigs.
Nobody thought this was going to be that exposure gig. But that's kind of the Credence Clearwater. Because we were talking about them the other day. Like that's, I think, one of for such a short time of a band, one of the most impactful bands in rock and roll history.
Yeah.
I mean, Fogerty's voice alone and those.
Right.
I mean, he is the soundtrack to the Vietnam War.
It's true.
Pretty much. It's like, besides, Dylan, but I'd say, but you're going to hear this more in Vietnam because it's awesome. It ain't me. Forrest Gump to like Hamburger Hill
Everything.
to Platoon.
Right.
It's in everything. Jefferson Airplane, the band, and Janis Joplin were all paid the same. They're paid $7,500. That's just funny when you say that. It sounds like Janis flipping Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, the band.
Just the fact that all these people were there. I mean, really, when you think about that, is pretty amazing.
I know, and that's like it's a little more than $50K.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money, but we just went and saw the Epicenter concert last year before COVID destroyed everything,
Right.
and this was like Bush is playing, Judas Priest was playing, who else?
Tool.
Rob Zombie.
Yeah, Rob Zombie. Machine Gun Kelly was there, sort of like on the upswing. Like he's massively huge now.
Right.
But it was kind of neat. And he was one of the best shows. Yeah, Foo Fighters, right? Yeah.
Tom Morello was there, Foo Fighters,
Yeah, it was it was a huge show. Like these guys are getting paid
311.
way. Well, 311 was kind of awesome too.
Yeah.
Like you forget like how awesome 311 is until it is. It's like, oh, 311, that's that band from the 90s. You're like,
Yeah.
like that groove. It's like I watched like the lead singer's got this sort of like this rhythmic thing. Anyway, I don't want to talk about 311, but it was an awesome show.
PRS artists.
They are PRS artists. It was that was a
There you go.
And somehow Derek would always talk his way onto stage. We had no credentials to be on stage, but we're filming on stage, which was hilarious. Like, why are you guys up here? We're supposed to be.
We're filming, bro. Come on.
Okay. That's all it takes. Just act like you belong there at a concert and they'll let you on stage.
Why are you speaking to me, sir?
It's like, I was literally touching like Gavin, his guitars from Bush. Like they didn't play because the rain came here, so I was like holding the guitar. Anyway, back to, okay, let's go on. Richie Havens, who I've seen live. I saw Richie Havens play at the theater, Sunrise Theater, down the street from here.
Really?
Isn't that amazing? Richie Havens, like he has one of those most iconic performances. He sort of opened the show in a lot of ways.
Right.
Amazing. He plays with his thumb. Beautiful protest songs and just beautiful songs. Sly and the Family Stone, Canned Heat. Who remembers that? And The Who. The Who was paid $7,000. These other bands were paid $6,000 to $7,000. So The Who was paid $7,000. Jimi Hendrix was paid $18,000. That'd be about $49,000 for $7,000 versus $100,000, which I think is funny because Jimi Hendrix opened for The Who back in the days, and and this is like 2 years prior.
Right.
Not even much. Like it's just sort of phenomenal. Just the fact that The Who was paid so little, and The Who was a huge band. I think that's just managerial goof ups. Let's keep on moving. Now, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young we're coming down $5,000 on par with Arlo Guthrie.
There you go.
But the same thing, which is sort of funny because Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young are probably like the biggest like acoustic sort of group in like our like sort of collective history.
That's probably true.
Besides Tesla with the 5-man acoustic jam. God, who doesn't love Tesla? Like when Signs came out, I mean that's iconic to me.
And they have a car named after them.
That's a good point. That's really funny too. That's like because that's what I thought when I met their guitar player. I thought he was an engineer for the car company at first. I was like, man, these engineers are badass. And he shreds a guitar.
Who knew they could play like this?
God, he looks so
Great.
so much cooler than an engineer looks. No, he was just a rock star. So anyways, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, again, like $5,000. That's about $35,000 today. So you could have Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. That's like getting like Bon Iver or something. I would say equivalent, like Bon Iver for $5,000 at your birthday party.
It's very good pronunciation too.
Thank you. I never really know how you're supposed to say it.
I don't know that.
I want to have people like I've heard so many different versions. I think that's right though.
I just avoid words like that.
Bon Iver.
Bon Iver. I love that new Bon Iver track.
Bon Iver. The Bon Iver. It's like a botch. When I hear somebody say botch,
Yeah.
like I love the composer Botch. I'm like, yeah, he's good. He slapped hard. Now this other band that I think is funny, like one of the biggest bands in American history, the Grateful Dead, was paid a whopping $2,500.
Yeah.
That equals $17,500.
Not so good.
That's kind of like I messed up with the bond. That was $35,000. So that'd be $35,000 for a bond number.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I think it's like 5,000. But still, that still would be a steal.
Yes.
And I don't think you get, because I think when we tried to have Marcus King, we paid Marcus King to play the theater down here was something like $4,000.
That was right before he blew up.
He was blowing up, and then
was
like
in the middle of it.
Then like the next year was like $40,000. And so like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young is like way bigger. They're like commercial huge hits. Arlo Guthrie huge at this point too. The Grateful Dead, the biggest jam band. They're just still fairly new, but the biggest jam band in American history.
Absolutely.
$2,500. I think it's just funny. $2,500. $17,500 equivalent. Jerry and the band said it was their worst gig they've ever had.
They keep getting electrocuted, you said?
Yeah. Because they're standing in puddles of water, and this stuff is not grounded properly. So Jerry becomes the grounding wire for the microphone and his guitar, and it's not a good scene. So he said every time he would touch the mic, he'd almost die. And he was just being shot sort of a constant low voltage the whole time, just being plugged in. And it was an overall miserable experience. And it
sounds awesome. Live music, it's great. And
it's filmed for posterity forever.
Yes.
Because they have decades of wonderful thing, but this one's filmed beautifully. But there's a lot of other artists that played Woodstock. I had to pick and choose.
Right, of course.
And I'm certain the last is next, because I found this sort of funny. Carlos Santana. So Santana, the band plays. I mean, they're not that famous. They were paid a whopping $750. Let's let that sit in for a minute. $750. So that's about $5,345.
That sounds better, but still.
But that's
very low.
That's a band. It's not just Carlos. It's not like Joan Baez, or Arlo up there playing. It's Carlos and his band. And this is this is the most famous Carlos Santana performance on filmed history. This is he's on acid and mescaline at this point, and so is his conga player, I believe, and they are just melting the world with their music. It's shred. It's unbelievable.
It's so good.
I mean, you gotta say don't do drugs to everybody, but something happened right with this experience.
Don't. But if you were gonna do it, right before you play Woodstock is a decent time.
I think the story, I don't know the exact story, and people please just share it with it because it's fun. But I remember reading at some point. I wasn't there. I'm not quite that old, but they didn't know exactly what they were taking, and they took it and didn't think they were going to go on at the time they did or something. And there was whoops. Because I think Carlos thought his guitar was melting and the floor was melting, and he was chasing that awesome dragon of tone, and you can tell the congos and everything playing. The guys he probably thinks his hands are going inside the drum, and it's an unreal performance. It's magical.
It is magical, and
all for $750 too. So that's kind of those are the big hits.
Yeah,
that's the big hits, and we thought it's just neat to have it all summarized and sort of seeing what the most important musical experience captured on film and cultural consciousness, sort of flower power, what these artists were actually paid.
It is interesting.
It's fascinating, right? It's very different it's different, but the same as today's festivals as far as it was a business. It's there were people, there's producers trying to make money. The artists had to be paid. There's points where they're flying them in, the wind's blowing over towers and things, and it's a nightmare. There's no sanitation, there's no bathrooms, there's no proper food or health care. But we've looked back at this as an amazing cultural phenomenon and event. And it was sort of a transformative moment in American history, I think, too. And now you see the numbers behind it as well. A little different than Woodstock, too, with Fred Durst. And
what do you mean?
Well, it's funny because you hear them talking at this Woodstock, just peace and love and everything. You hear Fred Durst just break the guys.
So angry.
And the guys are telling the security stop doing this, just calm down for a minute. That he's getting mad and pissy because sound's not good there, and then he's just feeding the frenzy of anger, and then bad stuff happens at Woodstock too. So Woodstock 1 is what we're talking about, in case you're confused.
Just to clarify.
What do you think? Anything else that we can add?
I think that's about it.
$750.
$750.
Or actually, for the equivalent of about $4,900 or $4,500, you could buy a Lunar Ice right now.
Hey.
Or
you could have Santana, whatever you want.
Come play at your birthday party.
Yeah.
That's insane. So Carlos, if you're out there, we will pay you to come to Woodstock. I'll give you $5,000 myself. You'll come here to Casino Guitars and play with us.
Yeah.
Just for the afternoon. That would be a lot of fun.
Don't have to bring the band. You could just come yourself.
Come hang out. We'll have tea. Talk about guitars a little bit. Play some guitars. Have fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
Because when we saw NAMM that one year, he was just talking philosophy and poetry, and it was just amazing.
I feel like that'd be really good use of $5,000.
I just want to hang out with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining us.
Massive.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you don't miss videos in the future. We'll see you next time.